Feeding a meal to a child is a great ordeal for all of us. While these terms meal and ordeal would sound very rhyming and alike, they are not synonymous. But in the world of motherhood, these two terms appear as synonyms. Good evening and welcome you all to Ketchup Mom's Let's Talk Show, episode 9, with the most wanted subject. There's no doubt that all children or most of the children are picky eaters. Fussiness has become a part of their development. Even the most determined mother has to cow down to the child's resolution to not eat anything rather than trying out something new. And as mothers, we ourselves, we can be categorized broadly into two. The first category of mothers would be like, uh, I would want to give what my child wants to eat. Whatever my child wants to eat, I would give it. Like you'll come across kids with having a chocolate diet, like a chocolate muffin, a chocolate pancake, chocolate dosa, a chocolate milk. Everything has to have a chocolate. Why? Because the child prefers to eat chocolate, and therefore the meal has a tinge of chocolate in that. Easy and a stress-free feeding technique, right? The second category of mothers would not resort to such kind of chocolate diet. They would actually relate themselves to the daily challenge of finding out foods what the children would eat. Like this could be a typical situation where the child has peanut butter and jelly as the most favorite thing for the day to day. And the next day, the child wouldn't even turn back and give a second look to the sandwich made. Therefore, we have few who are more bothered about the obesity. Like for them, the obesity dominates the national discussion of childhood health. And some are worried about the child's diet of nuggets and noodles, which can lead to nutrition deficient. End of the day, all of us miss out on the basic golden rule behind this gut health and nutrition quotient of the kids. And so we have today two nutrition experts, Ms. Janvi Chitalia and Ms. Shaini Surendran, to tackle all our common issues related to feeding, which we have been voicing and wanting to resolve it. So on behalf of Ketchup Mom's team and the viewers, I would like to welcome both Ms. Shaini Surendran and Janvi Chitalia.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hi. Shaini Surendran, if I have to talk about her, I think we can run short of time in talking about all her achievements. She is a sports and a preventive health nutritionist with 20 years of experience in the field. She's an author, columnist, and a great speaker at scientific conferences. She works with competitive and recreational athletes and celebrities from film industry. She's a specialist in PCOS, metabolic issues, and weight management. She's on the board of studies of Madras University, Women Christian College, and Tamil Nadu Physical Education Sports University, where she helps framing syllabus for undergrads and postgrads home science courses. She's also associated with Tamaira Aesthetic Clinic in Chennai. Welcome you on board, Shaini.
Thank you. Pleasure being here.
Thank you. And the another expert in the panel is Ms. Janvi. She's from Mumbai. And she's one of the very few gut microbiome expert and functional nutritionist in India. She's a founder of Body Cocoon, a unit with a vision to reverse medical conditions through functional approach of foods and lifestyle changes by empowering gut health. And Janvi is from Mumbai.
Thank you.
Hi. Once again, I welcome both of you for this very, I would call it as a very educative and most wanted subject of the day. So Shaini, if I have to start with you, what is gut health and how it is important for a healthy life.
Okay, thank you. I'm glad that you chose this subject because this is very, very important, especially during the challenging phases that we are going through. We've been talking about immunity to a great extent, and gut health has a big role to play. So this is the basic, so addressing the basic, and if you want your child to be healthy, gut is the most important. Gut is nothing but the gastrointestinal system. So right from here, the entire tube that goes down till the anus. So if the intestines are healthy, then automatically the brain is going to be super healthy, and then you're going to be alert. You will see that your child, has better cognitive function, and they'll be able to grasp concepts very well. Whatever you're trying to teach, they wouldn't be sleepy, they wouldn't be tired if all that they eat is getting absorbed beautifully in their small intestine, and if they're also being able to send out all the waste of the digestion after digestion, whatever needs to be expelled out, if that also goes out properly, then the entire, the healthy bacteria which lives inside our intestines, that goes ahead to ensure that we are healthy to a great extent. And for a child, this is very, very important. And gut health is something that we really have to focus on, because the gut and the brain are connected. And when you say headaches, migraines, feeling fatigued, or having fogginess, everything can be connected to the gut health. So this is the most important aspect. And whether it's a child or an adult, one has to focus on gut health, because that's the most important thing to, really focus on.
So, Janvi, like you are a gut health expert. Like they say that the certain health traits which begins, from the time the child is in the womb. Does this gut immunity also start from the time the child is in the womb?
Absolutely. And again, I'd completely agree with Shiny that, thank you so much for bringing up this topic today, because I think slowly and steadily the awareness towards gut health is really increasing. And I think I totally agree that it's such an important part, such an integral part of our lives, because digestion truly is the river of life that we have. And it's so important for us to be able to see how this balance can actually stay put, and how we can manage to keep this balance in order to have a great health. So coming to what you were asking really is absolutely, I totally agree with you that, I believe the fact that your gut health really starts from the moment, not even at the moment that a mother conceives, but really from the time that you decide to actually, to decide towards planning a pregnancy. I think it's really, really important to focus on your gut health, because it's essential to, understand that the gut microbes, or the healthy bacteria that we're talking about, or the beneficial microbes, need to really be in a good amount of proportion, in sync with the bad and the good bacteria in your gut balance, in order to make sure that the mother can really be able to have a very, very healthy pregnancy, number one. Number two, there are very beautiful facts that I'd love to share today with you all about the fact that the journey for the baby obviously starts in the womb, obviously taking all the nutrition through the mother. So it's really important that the mother's gut is really healthy and is full of these, the right kind of strains that we need, the beneficial bacteria, so that she can pass on the right kind of microbes to the child. But another beautiful mechanism that I'd like to talk about today is when the baby is actually coming out through a vaginal delivery. So the whole actual in the underplay of this is that when the baby's coming out through the vaginal canal, the most beautiful thing is that its head kind of hits this whole sac, which is full of these amazing, amazing lactobacilli, which, and the whole act of the child crying is the most beautiful way that the child takes in its first very, very robust and diverse microbiome, which is very, very beneficial for the foundation of a good immunity for the child. Also comes next as the, you call it in a way a suraksha kavach, if I could say so, or a defense mechanism for the child, really is to work on the breastfeeding that the child gets, because that is so, so full of amazing microbes, bacteria, and a lot of other important nutrients that the child really builds in the first few years. So that's from the moment of conception to really being in the womb, to the entire journey of the baby coming out, It's just about really how important the microbes are, and it really has a very important determinating factor in terms of how the child's immunity will be, especially for the first 3 years of life, where their intestinal integrity or the intestinal lining of the walls are still building. So that's really, really important. And so every mother should really focus on her health, at least. So even if they've not been very, very much proactive towards their health before, they should, before they plan, really plan to have a very balanced gut health. Thank you.
Oh, so that's like a nice piece of information, you know. So
Yes,
you have to take care of your gut health much before you think of having a baby.
absolutely.
Yeah. So Shiny, then the gut and the nutrition are interconnected, right? So the
Yes.
better the nutrition food eaten by the child at the very early stage or by the mother herself before pregnancy, the greater would be the gut health, right?
True, true. Absolutely. In fact, there's a lot of research that indicates that what the grandmother eats also influences the child's health. That's
Really?
the latest. Yes. We've had a lot of webinars recently. Uh,
Okay.
and this was a discussion that was going on in one of the webinars. We have live conferences, virtual conferences these days. So there's so much information. So I think every girl child who's born has to really focus on just eating healthy. And as we bring them up, we need to teach them how to cook and also back it up with a lot of science so they understand the Indian foods and the goodness of Indian foods and probiotic, prebiotic, which is there. So 2 generations and you will still see the impact.
So is it like because of that they, most of the time, like we hear people saying that, okay, my grandma had, nice thick black hair, and so therefore I tend to have it, when
Yeah.
I'm like going to turn till become a background grandmother, or like she had a great immunity, and therefore I'm going to have a greater immunity, right? So
Yes.
there's a lot of
Yes.
link. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so Janvi, then what are the main strains of bacteria
Mhm.
which are beneficial for the kid at the very early age, which as a mother I should really take care of?
Right. So, like I was speaking about breastfeeding, and like I was speaking about having a vaginal delivery versus having a C-section, which would give on to more inflammatory bacteria. The two main strains which are really important in terms of bacteria for the child overall. One is Lactobacilli acidophilus, which is the one that the child actually gets swamped in. So another really interesting piece of information is that in a number of countries abroad right now, what they're doing, that for women who have a C-section, for example, because these lactobacilli are so important for the child, they take that from the mother's vaginal canal, they swab it out, and then they swamp up the baby who's come via C-section with all those amazing lactobacilli bacteria, because it didn't get the chance to actually take it into their system while coming out in the delivery. So that's they're trying to work around that so that the child can get the maximum benefit of starting on the right foot. So lactobacilli is one very important one. Another important strain for the child is bifidobacterium, which is very, very helpful, and that's also present in the breast milk, and that's why these are really, really important to start with. And they really decide, like the determinants of things, like even when I'm dealing with even very young children. I have clients like 2 years and 3 years old who are having a lot of allergy issues, who are having a lot of ear infections, who are having a lot of colic, who are having a lot of acid or gas distension. We realize that generally when they do not have the right kind of balance of strains of bacteria, which are these strains of bacteria are beneficial, they do tend to have a recurrent ear infection, which again needs a probiotic, which again takes away more beneficial bacteria. So it's really kind of it's a vicious cycle that we need to kind of help breaking, and that's why these are really important. I just say that for the child, as obviously going through the part of it, it's very important that fiber, and probably slowly moving towards the right kind of soluble and insoluble fiber, will also be a beneficial way to feed these microbes, which these beneficial bacteria which are present in the gut, because like we need food, so do these beneficial bacteria need food. So I mean, I'll come to that in some of the other discussions that we have, but essentially that's the most important part, to have these two strains and to ensure that the child is getting enough of it. Yes.
So it's like it's better to opt for a natural delivery otherwise also, but given the
Yes.
gut part of it, it's better to opt for a natural delivery than going for a C-section.
Yes, definitely. It has its own benefits for sure.
Yeah.
For every way, even the mother child connection that builds at the very moment the child is on the chest or the breast of the mother, as soon as the child is born and cleaned up and brought, that itself is such a it's such a powerful aspect. So there are many, obviously there are many benefits, but this is one of them in terms of the gut and overall connection.
So tell me something. Suppose if, like in my case, I have delivered the first child normal, and the second one had to be a C-section because he was quite overweight. Uh, so you think that there's going to be a change in the gut system of both the children?
There would be. So essentially the start of how they started could be different because of the microbes and the way that the interaction with the microbes is. But yes, that is one impact. Obviously, over the time, there is so many other factors in terms of the nutrition, the way that they, are eating the right kind of foods, helping them to become more resilient in the way that they have the right microbes as they're growing up. Working on the intestinal integrity can always, to a certain extent, help them to catch up and have the right kind of bacteria. It's not a lost case completely, but yes, there is definitely a benefit when it is via a vaginal delivery. Yes.
So all viewers, and especially the pregnant women, just make sure that you go for a normal delivery.
No pressures, no pressures.
No pressures, of course. Yeah. So then that brings up another question in my mind, which I'm going to ask Shiny. Like once a baby is born, the first, I would say the initial few years, 1 to 2 years, we tend to keep them on the milk or the cereals, especially the child food which is available, in the market. And that's how, like, we play it safe, think that isko ye na ho jaye, usko wo na ho jaye, so you kind of keep it very safe, uh, not to take any stress of bringing up the little one, and they say कि 3 साल हो जाएगा, 4 साल हो जाएगा, he'll start picking up the digestive power, and then you start giving them better nutrition food. Is that the way, or what is your say on that? So what kind of food we should start off at a very early age?
See, it's definitely very important that the first 1,000 days, that's World Health Organization and any other organization, if you see, we follow the same recommendations. The first 1,000 days are like very, very crucial. And about exclusive breastfeeding, so definitely for the first 6 months, and if the mom and the child are comfortable, it even extends to a year. And another important factor is throughout, right from the time the mother decides to have a baby, her food intake is definitely going to affect the health of the child, right? And as she had mentioned about the vaginal birth, that is also very, very crucial. Again, there are instances where, like how you mentioned, you don't have control over whether it's going to be a C-section or a normal delivery.
True.
But of course, at least once the child is born, the first would be to give colostrum. So that is the first milk, right? And breastfed children have much better immunity compared to the kids who are not breastfed. Okay, so I think that is the most important factor that everyone needs to be aware of. Another factor is the complementary foods. जैसे कि घर पे दादी माँ हैं, उन्होंने भी कुछ, she would have also gathered a lot of these age-old or rather ancient wisdom. And then there are these porridges that is, घर का बना हुआ जो भी porridge है, वो भी ले सकते हैं. And then down south, there is a whole lot of millets and red rice. And of course, the sprouts which are made and it is sun-dried. And then uske baad, senke, that is dry roast karke, powder karke, that porridge is also prepared. So that is another thing that is given. And roasted Bengal gram is also powdered along with, it's mixed with rice flour and then given. So these kind of porridges are given which already have, these cereals. So a good amount of energy comes in. So we all know how when a child has been introduced to new foods, first we start with all these, soft cooked, mashed, the semi-solid types, and then also even the fruits are boiled and then nicely mashed, and then carrots. So this is how you go ahead and then introduce food one by one. And then of course, once they start teething, you also start giving foodstuffs which they can bite. And within the first 2 years of life, they should be introduced to all the different types of taste, the sour ones, the bitter ones, the sweet taste, all of that. Because if you introduce that early, then the child is more acquainted, and that's going to help a lot in accepting a lot more foods as the child is growing up. If you wait till 4 years of age, it's not going to help. And the chewing mechanism is important, because when I work with a lot of children who are into sports, and if the children have obese, I would have easily seen a connection where the dadima or the ma herself would have nicely blenderized everything and then given it in the pureed form for quite some time. So the child doesn't like anything which has to be chewed really well, and that's not a good idea. So as long as, I think, by the first birthday itself they'll start, getting the milk teeth, and then I think it's a good time to go ahead and start introducing these kind of foodstuffs. So the texture has to change, and then bringing in a variety, because gut health is so very important, because 70% of your immunity, everything is so influenced by the health of your intestines. And when you introduce food diversity, we call something called as a food diversity score, which means if you are taking grains, your pulses, your fruits, your vegetables, you have to cover the entire spectrum. So not just गेहूं का बना हुआ roti, but also have ancient rice, also have millets, the nachni, the bajra, the jowar. So try a variety of these so that you're getting a diversity there. Likewise, dal. So each of these food groups, wahan pe you will have to cover all the entire spectrum, and slowly, one by one, introduce, reintroduce. The child will reject, but again bring it back after a couple of weeks or months. And that actually helps, because it's not just the probiotic. You need a substrate like a prebiotic for the probiotic to grow. So that has to be provided. So I think eating a variety of foodstuffs actually gives that environment, the internal environment, and that's where the healthy bacteria will thrive.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
True. So all you egg mothers there, she's given you a list of things which we can try, rather than sticking on to the Cerelac and the other food supplements, which is generally easily available in the market. So easy, but at the same time, stress-free feeding. So Janvi, are there anything like gut microbe friendly food and not friendly food?
Right. So yes, I'm glad we brought up this question, because that makes it so much easy to bring things into perspective. So like we were just talking about the foods even for children, just to add in that the most important thing to really keep in mind is we're talking about prebiotics and probiotics here. And I think a lot of people, just to break this down, always have confusion because they sound so similar, and a lot of people go, isn't it the same thing, or are we substituting it for each other? So just to make it easier, probiotics primarily are your beneficial microbes, like clearly how Shani mentioned, and prebiotics are really the food that they need to thrive. So the one thing I would like to start with clearing is that please understand that the bad microbes, that we so call it, are also thriving in our intestine, and they are equally important as the good microbes. So it is really always about going back to the balance that is very, very essential. It is when that this balance between the good and bad microbes are taken over by the excess of bad microbes, maybe say small intestinal bacteria overgrowth, having candida, having yeast overgrowth. When these things happen, and when the imbalance really gets upset, or there's like a kind of a disruption there, that's when all the issues of the imbalance of your gut starts. But they live together in synergy as long as you provide them a very healthy environment to thrive in or to live in. So that's really, really important. So your prebiotics are really like the way that we need our nourishment, to really thrive, to really, really be the best version of ourselves. The same way we need the beneficial bacteria that we have, need prebiotics to be able to have that benefit that they can for the same thing. So that's really important for us to get that in terms of nutrition. So probiotics, some of the examples for that I like to give you is there's kefir, that you can make from dairy-free milk. There is kombucha that you can make at home. So these are basically, again, they're fermented into live bacteria cultures, which are really, really recognized. And they're also very, very, widely now starting to be recognized and used in houses. There's also obviously our favorite yogurt that we have in terms of what we use, which has the live, bacterial culture in it. We can make fermented vegetables. And yes, to go back to the grandmothers, our grandmothers making pickles for years. So I think that's a great point. So, we've been knowing of the fact that, we'd eat that. They'd just eat bajre ki roti and pickle for lunch, for example. And that is how they also had that fermentation in place. So I think going back to a pickle, which is not very fancy in terms of high salt or high oil like we would use here, but really going into the basics of maybe even using a cabbage and a ginger to ferment it is great. So fermented foods basically are a great option to have for probiotics, which have a chance for the anaerobic activity of the live acid culture. Apart from that, prebiotics, the food like we call, there are examples like onions, garlic, dandelion. All of these are again, very, very good sources for prebiotics also that we can have. But yes, mind you, it's very important to understand that, so that some of the people who have any of these bacterial overgrowths should not have prebiotics because there'll be excess fermentation in the system. So it's very important to take it through a nutritionist or a doctor before you decide to take something, so that you're completely in sync. And just to wrap up, the foods which are not very, so apart from that, obviously talking about how fiber is really important, like I already mentioned, soluble and insoluble fiber. But things which are really not so good for your gut are, number one, sugar. As we know that it literally takes about 4 to 5 hours, it literally our immunity can crash after having a high sugar or a high starchy meal, which may not do well because, it doesn't really add any kind of nutrient value. It's very, very high probably on calories, but it's not very high on nutrients. So it's nutrient maldeficient in a way, if you can say. So it's really important that sugar, processed and fast foods, things like you said, quick instant foods, all of these things, probably high salt foods, should be definitely avoided, because they really, really instantly, it takes only 3 to 5 days for your gut microbiome to alter itself. So bad foods, 2-3 days of just a binge eating, and your gut microbes will instantly change. And going back to eating right and just eating, like a balanced food, which intuitively works for your body, will bring back the balance and, help you to build back your gut microbes, the beneficial gut microbes back again into the system. So that's really, really important. So I think the balance would be between trying to make the right choice.
Okay. 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 So, Shiny, then I know a lot of healthy children, like they look to be very healthy, but they do show symptoms like fatigue, or some kind of a stomach pain, or some kind of even allergy for that matter, or tiredness. They don't want to do anything. Like both they would show that they are mentally and physically tired. All these are like the symptoms of very bad or very poor gut immunity.
Yeah, yeah, it's one of the factors. Yes, you're right. It could address as constant stomach pain. Okay. And not having a proper bowel cleanse. So if there is incomplete evacuation, and it's very, very important for the mother to check, once they poop, before they flush, it's very important for the mother to check, because I think how it looks also gives a lot of information, so that you can tell the pediatricians. If you see the old age, we have our when we were growing up, our family physicians would look at the stool sample, then the urine sample, and then look at the eyes. And so basically, that actually gave a very broad perspective and a holistic approach to figuring out, it's like a detective, trying to understand every single aspect, and see where can you see the, how can the diagnosis come through most perfectly. Okay, so looking at the person in totality. So I think the texture of the stool is also very important. And also, if there is any smelly stools, or if they're passing gas, bloating, and then lack of appetite, okay, or just having a lot of gas, belching, or some kind of indigestion gut problem. So all of these things actually matter, and this has to be paid attention. And also allergy, so it could be asthma, it could be eczema, it could be psoriasis, any of this. So I've seen children who are also into sports, like who also had food intolerance. But the reason why they came to me was, they were into swimming, competitive swimming, used to go for national competitions. They said it's just that, how much of a good healthy food we are providing, and still the child is not able to compete at that level. And then later the thing was, first let's look at the gut, and then we found out that it was lactose and gluten intolerance. So once we removed those, then automatically the intestine, the inflammation reduced. And whatever nutritious food the mother was already giving, now it was getting absorbed beautifully. And the child was getting all the nutrients, and the performance really became better. So if you see, I think this is the first factor that one really has to look at. It's about making sure that the gut is healthy, and then we are including a lot of these kind of natural foods. And as Janvi mentioned, all those desi local foods. And in down south, I would like to add some more. The thing is, you have the kacha kela, green plantain, and if you also see palm, there's this you steam it and eat. It's called the panankirangu, or the palm fruit, right? Like, so that one is available. Then banana pith, or the plantain stem, that's again locally used widely among the southern part of the country. Next thing is also the fermented rice. Just if you look at like say Tamil Nadu, Kerala borders, they would actually cook a little extra rice during summer, and then soak that in water in a mud pot or a mud vessel, and then use it the next morning. But of course, they would add a lot of buttermilk to it, and then a little bit of salt, and then also shallots are added. The small onions or sambar onions are added. Now that's a fantastic combination of prebiotic and probiotic. And this is supposed to be a poor man's food, but then this like works wonders. I know my professor, when I was in college, she did her research work and she found like a whole lot of nutrients sitting there. And she said, okay, poor people might be eating, but trust me, I think all of us need to have it. So that was her PhD work. I'm talking about early in the 90s. And also ragi porridge. If you can actually cook it the previous night, and the next morning you just add some buttermilk and then take it. So these millets have a whole lot of goodness, and it's not polished. So there's fiber intact and a lot of vitamins, and plus this thin buttermilk. And that's like a fantastic concoction. So these are some of the things that are included, besides of course the raita and the dahi, garka bana hua dahi, and that too in a matka. You set the curd in a mud pot. That's the most important factor, and that has so much of goodness. So as I mentioned, these you'll have to look for constipation, diarrhea, plus also handle this with a lot of desi khana. So you needn't look for superfoods and look at the Western world. There are superfoods here in our cuisine, in each.
I know. If I'm not wrong, the rice thing which you mentioned and the millets, they are called kanjis and kools, right?
Yes, you're absolutely right.
Down south, it's called as kanjis. They call it as kanjis. But you know what? When it comes to kids, it's quite difficult to feed them that. So how do we make it very child friendly? Because I know it's very rich in nutrition and has a great value to gut health. But how do you make it very interesting for the kids?
Okay, probably the consistency can be changed so that it looks like a pudding, or else a nice thick, a thick consistency, semi-solid, and then add a lot of fruits and then nuts and seeds. And really, the presentation, the how you serve also matters. You're just going to give it in like a steel glass or else a steel katori. More than that, if it is like a glass and then layered with some, chia seeds, and then if there are some fresh fruits like pomegranates and all that, and then nicely, it's all about presentation, coaxing them. And also, if a child is someone who adores, like say a cricketer, or else like say a boxer, and say if you want that kind of strength, like how when MS Dhoni had mentioned that he drinks buffalo milk, everybody was like, okay, this is one person I look up to. So a lot of children were actually quite excited about it, and so this is how you associate. So it's a carrot and stick policy. So you want to get stronger like so and so, or you want to be great at this particular sport. So this is what you do, or you eat dahi chawal, taif sadam that we call it. Okay, then if you have that, you're going to do very well in maths and science. So you want to be the class topper, to ye khana chahiye. So this is how you work around. So even the combination of a biryani and a raita, it's excellent. It actually helps you digest very well. So it's because of the raita, right? The vegetables and the curd. Beautiful probiotic.
Yeah.
So it's about how you coax them to eat.
Yeah, maybe we can make like a
Their
faluda.
language.
Yeah, maybe we can make it like a faluda kind of a thing, and then
Absolutely.
keep
Yeah, the
two
chia pudding.
straws. Yeah, and then the way we present it. But then, yeah, we should take into consideration the old ancient methods to adopt that and bring it, give a fancy look to it and give it to our children.
Exactly. Give it a new name
Give it a
and
new
tell a
name.
nice story. Bring in
Yeah,
a hero.
correct. Correct. So, like how gut health has a greater influence on the physical stamina of it. Janvi, tell me, like the gut health has any connection to the brain and the stress? Like they call it as gut connectivity
Yeah.
to brain, gut connectivity to stress. So,
Yeah.
is there anything like that?
Yes, absolutely. So the most important thing here that I'd like to talk about first is that when it comes to your gut-brain connection, in a way, we call our gut the second brain, and we also do believe. So we know of a lot of patients who probably who are in hospitals and they say that they have had a coma and they're not able to really they're kind of almost they're not able to use their intellect or their mind that way, but they are still able to be given a feed tube and actually be able to keep going on just on the basis of the gut health taking care or taking over as a second brain. So we actually know, we've been established that your second brain truly is your gut. And the most amazing thing about this is that the vagus nerve that goes all the way from your brain to the gut is one of the main cranial nerves, which really takes care of all the communication. So our gut is actually a window to the outside world. So anything like when we were talking about allergies, or when we were talking about autoimmune conditions and all of these things that we deal with on a day to day, we are dealing with people who have allergies and autoimmune conditions. So we've realized one very simple thing, that it's really the gut health in terms of how they actually, the interaction between the brain and the gut, the interaction of your gut with the environment, that really decides so many factors for your health. So this vagus nerve really is really important. Before I come to how you can stimulate this vagus nerve a little bit, I'm going to talk about a very beautiful concept, which I'd like to share. The number one thing that I'd really like to talk about today is that in terms of allergies and other things, when you're talking about your gut being healthy, in terms of even this whole gut stress, all of this connection, is that your immune system, like we mentioned, 70 to 80% of it lies in your gut. So what technically happens is that every time there is a food that's coming into your system, your immune system is like your gatekeeper. It's like a security guard. It's like your watch guard. It says, hey, I know this food. Okay, come in. Now the door is open. You'll see something else it doesn't know at all. It'll say, go away, the right kind of food that you want to come in. And that's the whole sensibility of this immune system, is what really makes us protect our body, protect ourselves from the foods which are not good for us. And over the time, when we're triggering that again and again, with the wrong foods, with toxins, with so many other things which are not good for your system, that's when the immune system really becomes hyperactive. So we think, oh, immune system, nervous system, digestive system, they all are different. No, but they all actually are, they actually work together as one entity. And that's really important to understand. And that's why when we have an allergic reaction, you eat something in 15 minutes, you see an immediate allergy, is because your immune system has gone crazy, bonkers. It's saying, hey, this is not good for me. Or when you have a delayed immune reaction, which could be after 8 hours or 10 hours or even the next day, there are different things that the body is constantly trying to do to protect itself. And that's how these autoimmune conditions and allergies come up. So the body is constantly trying to protect itself from that. So these obviously do create a lot of stress in our body when there are constant triggers that the body is facing. Another very important thing that I'd like to just touch upon for a second is about this beautiful concept of perception of stress. Perception of stress is very different from stress. Stress for our bodies has always been that a tiger is chasing me and I'm going to die if I don't run for my life. But what has happened with our fast-paced worlds now is that even if I'm driving from point A to point B in Bombay or in Chennai, or if I am on a deadline for work, I am so much in that state where I'm constantly making my body feel like the tiger is running behind me, but it's actually not. And being in that complete alarm mode, like a time bomb mode, just irritates your immune system even more. So that is actually perception of stress. It's not that stress where you need to save your life, but your body not being able to understand the difference causes you to be completely hyperreactive, causes your gut to be hyperreactive, and causes all of this mess to come around. So just two tips that I'd love to give is the vagus nerve really depends on something called the heart rate variability. I'm not going to go into too much details about that. But the main thing that you can really do to stimulate your vagus nerve and improving the resilience of this vagus nerve will help you improve your gut-brain connection. Is an amazing tip that everybody can do right now to also build their immunity is if you are a hot bath lover, just step in for a moment and switch on the cold water and take a cold shower in between that hot shower, and just the temperature regulation change that you bring about can improve the resilience of the vagus nerve. Or the fact that you spend in some time sitting with your family in the lockdown right now and laughing your heart out together is a great way that you can stimulate the vagus nerve. Or probably putting in some yoga and meditation is another great way to stimulate this entire vagus nerve and this entire resilience of it, and that will make it much better for you in terms of your gut brain connection and be able to deal with stress and immunity also. Yes.
Great. So that's a beautiful information, like having a hot water and cold water bath mix. I think all
Yes.
kids can try, and even the mothers can try and give that to the kids too, the younger kids.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, but having heard how important it is and all that, end of the day, the kids are poor eaters, picky eaters, very fussy eaters, and obviously the nutrition quotient is at stake. So the best quick fix what we most of the mothers would do is like buy some supplements from the market, which can boost their nutrition level, and then feed them with that along with the meal. आज थोड़ा सा कम खा लिया तो ये लो, ये थोड़ा सा दवाई ले लो, which can improve your nutrition level. Shani, tell me, such supplements available in the market, are they anyways good, or do they really do the magic?
Okay, I think it's best left to the doctor to decide, because the pediatrician knows what needs to be done. Because there are conditions where the child has a health issue, or there could be an inborn error of metabolism, or there could be some serious gastric issue. And in such medical issue condition, the doctor is the best person to decide. It's best that we do not look at Dr. Google, because there's too much of information, and none of us have the discernment to filter out, or rather, understand which is evidence-based medicine and which is not.
Very
So
true.
certain things are best, consulted with a physician, and not to tread into those areas at all. But generally, if a child is healthy, then I think it's good that they go ahead and play. Outdoor activity is very, very important. I think 2 hours of good outdoor activity will really help. Of course, they will fall, they will play with the dirt. And as Janvi had mentioned, dirt, so the good bacteria and the bad bacteria will thrive. It's all about the balance. I think that's a very valid point that she brought out. And if you notice, see, cow dung used to be smeared in village houses. If you've seen the wall as well as the floor, okay?
Yep.
And also the threshold of that door, every house, that door frame, if you see, they'll apply haldi. All these factors, if you see if the cow has gone out and then grazed, so it is a lot of grass that it had chewed, right? And a whole lot of plant food. And then the dung will have a lot of goodness of those herbs and plants. Okay, so that is what they're smearing. So there's a whole lot of logic. If you look at the Indian systems, you will find a lot of science, but probably our ancestors didn't have or didn't know how to explain this to us any better. It's the same thing with even goat milk. You must have heard about how goats will go to the hills and then eat a lot of medicinal herbs, and that's why goat's milk was supposed to be pretty healthy or had medicinal properties. So I would say go dig deeper, into ancient science, Indian, systems, and look at ways to feed your child healthy. So if your child is actually sitting at home and playing video games, using the Xbox and then watching all the games, and television and all that, where is the physical activity? So indigestion would be a problem. So if they actually can play, so the best will be during COVID. I think the parents should go out, probably to the terrace, or if you have some space, go and play with your child. It's a good stress buster for the parents as well as the child. You release a lot of pent up energy, and it will also trigger hunger. And when the child is hungry, the child will eat most of the food that's given. If they're like super tired, they will come back home and actually eat. And while eating, I think when you sit at the dining table and have this interesting conversation, and also making sure that none of us show our dislikes on our face. If the father says, "Oh, I don't like bindi," and if the mother says, "I don't like karela," then automatically the child is looking up to them as their role models, and they'll say, I'm like papa, I'm like mama, even I don't like this, even without tasting the food, right? So I think these factors are also very important. And just like, storytelling helps a lot. So you can always tell, like, even if you have a Ferrari car or a Lamborghini or a Audi or a BMW, it's the fuel that actually makes the car run. Yeah. So you could always make the child understand. You could be, you're this most amazing kid that I have, but beta, yeah, beti, whoever it is at home, you have to make sure that, make them understand that you need to put the right fuel into your system. Then you'll be able to, sing, dance, study, be good at sports, and be this amazing child, right? And also, to construct a house, we have bricks, and you need the raw material which should be of good quality. So a child will understand all that. So if you can tell that this is how the food is, and if you're going to eat, it will go ahead and make your blood, and this is how all your organs are formed, and there's a whole lot of repair work happening. So if you start eating this, you will get this. So if this is told in a better way, then I'm sure a child will really be more receptive. So we need to talk at their level, really go to their level and talk, and not really stand here and talk as an adult. Because as nutritionists and dietitians, I'm sure Janvi also would have seen elders, adults, 30, 40, 50 years old, who don't want to give up their coffee, their chocolates, and their wine, right? What do you say about a child? I think we really need to understand, empathize, and not give all those gyan, and try to go to their level, speak their language, and weave this into a story and make them feed. I think that is what will work practically.
Absolutely. So true, so true. So the moms and the dads, you better eat the bindis and karelas and don't say no on the table, that the child picks up your language and says, no, my mom doesn't eat it. So the nutrition is actually built at home than it's built in the market.
So true.
It's basically at home. So similarly, Janvi, like when it comes to in fact, it's become a fashion statement nowadays, like carrying a probiotic drink in the hand and making the child have it once or twice in a day, and the explanation is given, if you drink this, the child the digestion is taken care. Is that true? Like, do we have to give our kids a probiotic drink, like, gulp it down for twice in a day?
Correct. I think, again, to come back to, just to take it from there, I think the most important part of probiotics is to understand that, like I said, that we already do have an innate balance, and an innate balance that our body understands about what is right in terms of the good and bad bacteria in our gut. And I think what happens a lot of times is that intuitively, we're not listening to ourselves, we're not listening to what our body is telling us. I do believe very strongly that children, so like, when you're talking about a few-month-old baby, or, a couple of, maybe months or maybe a year-old baby, I think that children have actually the they're most closest to their innate capabilities of understanding their body even more than an adult is. Because as we grow, we have so much of other influences that we see, from environment to maybe even seeing things about the foods, about peer pressure, about other kinds of pressure, and then we kind of we painted our entire perspective differently by the time we're even 13, 14, or even 18. I think children about till the age of 10 really know intrinsically. Like, I do believe, like, as a matter of fact, we were discussing that when a child comes in and they say, I will not eat more than this, I think the child knows better than you not to overeat a lot of times than a adult does, because in a way they are actually, if they're listening to their body, they're very, very tuned with how much they really need. So sometimes when they say no, it's really a no. The mother doesn't have to go be like the video that we had. Yeah, take this, for the,
Correct.
So I was really thinking about that. I said, oh my God, this is really what we're talking about, right? So I think it's very important to understand that it is essential to believe that the child really knows, and intrinsically as an individual, they have that capacity to understand what their body needs. They may not have all the knowledge, but they are very connected to themselves. Number one. Number two, I think it's very important to also understand the factor for children that generally when it comes to probiotics, I feel like they do not need anything from outside as long as they're doing fairly well and they are eating a fairly balanced meal. So apart from what we're talking, one favorite thing I tell all my children, and they love to hear about it, is your plate the color of a rainbow? And that is really a norm that I ask the children to follow. So if they are doing so many different colored of vegetables, fruits, yes, grains, all of these, but when they're doing a lot of colors, yellow, reds, they love eating it, number one, because it's exciting to see the colors. And they're such amazing polyphenols, they're antioxidants, so many powerful things within our fruits and vegetables and our spices and herbs that we have, that they get a lot of benefits of the probiotics and other things and the fiber that we need. So really, to make it interesting, and each of these colors have a significance. Like a blue will help with the cognitive function, an orange or a red that we know beta carotene will help with the eyes. So all of them are actually helping in so many ways. So I don't think that they need one cup, like a drink or whatever for probiotic from outside. But yes, if they do have these three issues, so after eating a meal, if they do get a lot of gas instantly, or maybe after sometimes they're just passing gas, or the stomach becomes hard rock solid after eating some meal, or they have like a bout of diarrhea, they have a lot of diarrhea, if they're intolerant to something which is normally related to a lack of enzyme. So allergy and intolerance is very different. Intolerance is related to a lack of enzyme in the body to break down that particular protein, and allergy is an immune system reaction which causes inflammation, like she mentioned, and all the other reactions. So to understand that if there is gas and bloating or a very tightness in the stomach, if there is a very, very high diarrhea, or if the child, after even eating this much amount of food, which you can plausibly see, says, I'm feeling too full and I just cannot eat, and that could be a sign that they are carrying worms or bacteria overgrowth, then should be taken to a doctor and then seen if they need to be on a course, acknowledged or understood by the doctor and a nutritionist, and then take it forward. Not to have a Yakult, or not to have a probiotic, or not to have a 2-3, any of these different, any probiotics on a day-to-day basis. Yes. But only from the food. Yes.
I like the word which came out, Yakult. I wasn't taking it out.
That's okay. I mean, it's not about taking a particular name. I think it's just that they need whatever they need from the food. And Yakult has become, in a great way, it's become quite a name that people resonate with when it comes to a probiotic. So it's easier for them to understand. That's about it.
Correct.
It may
Exactly.
resonate with any other probiotics.
Correct. So it's all about natural nutrition, you know.
Yeah.
So the other day when I was talking to Ms. Shiny, she was telling me the natural nutrition is something which is there available in our kitchen. We don't need to run anywhere to bring a natural nutrition. So Shiny, can you tell us what are the few things which I can pick it up from my kitchen and give it to my kids, which has natural nutrition, or few combinations which we can make?
Okay, I think the first one would be dahi. घर का बना हुआ dahi is the best, and the milk that you use to prepare the dahi has to be organic. Because if you look at the cows, which breed is it? Is it been crossbred? Okay, if it is a desi cow, it is like really good. So when I went to Gujarat, I saw the Gir cows. They had those huge horns, and I think the desi cows also have the hump. So that milk, and if it is grazing in the grass, in the meadows, or if it's given a good quality feed, then the milk will have CLA, which is a very good fat. It's an essential fat, and that actually helps to reduce fat and increase muscle mass. Okay, CLA is taken as a fat burner by people who go to the gyms. Athletes also take it, but the CLA is present in the grass-fed cow's milk. So organic milk, घर का बना हुआ dahi, and then eating a wide variety, say Monday to Sunday, a different grain each day for at least one meal. Okay, I think that would really make it. So any of your stuffed parathas one day, so that you can push a lot of greens, ya to grated carrot, beetroot, as Janvi mentioned, rainbow. So every color has to be brought. And so if mothers could sit and plan for an entire week, that will be a lot more easy. Otherwise, you wake up and then you're wondering, oh my God, what do I cook today? That becomes a little difficult.
Absolutely.
Buttermilk should be there. So, after breakfast, in between, whenever they are feeling hungry, a little bit of tadka, and then घर का बना हुआ छाछ is really good. And then also before lunch, also they can take a glass of buttermilk. So after lunch. So this is one thing that they can take, but definitely not like too sour, because then the kids will refuse it right away. Okay, so that's also one of the aspects. Next is to use this when you make kada and all that, you do have those jeera, saunf, ajwain. These things are also very important. Janvi had mentioned about the spices. I think this is a very important factor. And then घर का हुआ बना हुआ जो भी the pickles, with kacha haldi. That's also which is used in winter. These are also very important. So try to use a lot of these local herbs and bring in these millets, the ancient rice, because you have the bamboo rice, the black rice, all this also. So even if you're making a kheer, or if you're making like a payasam or any of the pudding, you can actually. So I have a friend here who's an expert. She makes black rice risotto. She makes neer dosa with black rice. She plays around with all this ancient rice. And this one particular rice called Mapillai Samba rice. It's very high in iron. Okay? So the traditional folklore says, if a man in a village wants to, give his daughter for marriage, so the boy had to come, the groom has to come and show his strength. Only then the father will trust that this girl will be taken care of, and he'll be able to fight the goons or protect the daughter very well. So this boy has to come and lift a big rock in front of the entire village. He has to come and lift it and then show his strength. So this Mapillai Samba rice is what they consume for weeks together. So if they know that the proposals, they started looking out for the bride, the boys actually start eating idli, dosa, and a whole lot of dishes prepared out of this, so that they can build on their endurance and the power and strength. So, so these are factors. So this is something that we have to include: a lot of ancient rice, millets, different varieties of dals, and then eating a balanced meal. Half the plate filled with vegetables. See, technically an adult is supposed to eat half a kg vegetables and 5 different fruits a day. How many of the moms and dads are eating? That is the question.
Not at all.
When you go back your child, I understand. So I guess it all starts with you eating a variety and then having fun foods. So you can make a nice cutlet or a burger with some rajma, ya to chole. So then you're still giving them burger, but then घर का बना हुआ burger. Bel puri, yes. Rather than giving the roadside, golgappas, which are fried in you don't know which oil. घर का बना हुआ French fries and golgappas and then homemade bel, all that still works. Right? You can make your own pizza and pasta, everything at home. I think that's what COVID has taught us. Be self-reliant, self-sufficient, and make all of these foods at home in moderation. So pick a day like a Friday or a Sunday and say, oh, okay, today you're getting a biryani. Yeah, your favorite noodles, but उसमें 50% vegetables डाल के खाएंगे. या तो pasta, उसका sauce में you can puree the vegetables and add it. So play around with this and make it interesting and be patient. Because if at 30, 40, if you're not able to eat, how can you expect your child to do that, right? Let's understand them. They're really tiny.
Yeah. So start having a proper schedule. Sunday morning, sit down and make the plan for the week. Monday this grain, this pulse, and then Tuesday this one, and then you start off the week. I guess the kids will have the varieties and will start eating it.
Absolutely. And homemade ice cream also.
Homemade, yeah.
There are so many things that you can make. Yeah.
Very, very true. So the millets, dahi, buttermilk, fruits, vegetables will do the magic.
Yeah, and the green leafy vegetables, pudine ka chutney, all
and
that.
And the ancient rices.
Yes, absolutely.
True. So, but where do you procure these ancient rice? You don't get it in the northern side or the west or east? I think it is only available in the south. So do you have anything like what is available in the north which we can go and procure?
Okay, I had sourced some black rice from Assam. So if you look at the northeastern belt, there's a whole lot of rice varieties that's available. You'll get the bamboo rice and all that. It's like fantastic. So I've made like a kheer out of it, and that's like it tastes really well. Even the regular idli dosa, if you prepare it with a red rice or with a millet, so it needn't be fully red rice. It can be 50% of this. So slowly bring in, because when the color changes, the children will be like, I don't want to eat like a brown colored looking dish. It doesn't look very appealing, right? So you just have to bring in slowly. So 20%, 30%, then 50%. So you have the processed, unprocessed together, then it's a lot more easier to consume. So make those gradual shifts. And a lot of allergies and everything will vanish if they start eating like this.
Okay.
And understanding the food intolerance. Yeah, because a lot of kids have allergies and asthma, wheezing and all of that. Yeah.
So Janvi, one food remedy for constipation.
So constipation, I'd suggest one of the top ones that you can use is to have half a teaspoon of jeera, 1 pinch of hing, 1 pinch of ajwain, and say about half a teaspoon of soft if you need, and put that into warm water, boil it, and then reduce it to half, and you can drink that, and that will help you go for stools. That will be really helpful.
Okay. Okay. Viewers, I hope you're all making a note of it. Okay. One food remedy for the gas. Gas problem.
Yes, so gas, again, if you want to have, again, soft is really, really good because it kind of cools down the system when the system is very, very gassy. So that's really key. So you can have maybe, again, soft again in water, soak it for some time and then have it. Or even, as a matter of fact, you can have some mint leaves also help you to kind of calm down the system. So you can even have some mint leaves in water and keep sipping that water through the day, hydrate yourself well, and get the gas levels down. Yes.
So basically, for kids, we can add a little bit of brown sugar or palm sugar in that, and then make it more interesting.
Yeah, you could do that.
Yeah. And for acidity?
Acidity, I'd say, again, is very important to, again, cool the system down. So you can have maybe a half a teaspoon or 1 teaspoon, slowly starting with maybe with sabja seeds that we know. Sabja is, again, very, very cooling for the system in terms of acidity. So it will help bring that down. So you can definitely have sabja when it comes to acidity.
Yeah. And okay, the very common problem, headache. Even the kids get headache.
So I think, again, the key again would be, so you could again do something like, I'll give you, I think jeera ajwain and all also really work well, because normally it's the gas and all of that that goes up to the head and that kind of gives you a headache. So I just want to sum that up in one line. But before that, I'll give you one more tip that you can do. If you have a blasting headache and you're not feeling very good, you can take an ice pack, roll it up, okay, maybe in some cloth, which is so it's not direct ice, put it on your head or your nape of your neck where you feel the stress and the tension is too much when there is gas. And you can put your feet in warm water while you're doing that. So what happens is a lot of blood circulation that's going up to the head and really giving you a throbbing headache, it kind of finds its flow down to your legs. So that can be a way that you can also cool that down. And just to give one final summary to this, is the key to this is constipation. When there is a constipation, there will be gas if it stays in your system. When there is gas, that gas can go up as a reflux up your esophageal tract. When there is an esophageal pressure that builds up, that will go up to a headache. So the key is constipation. The moment you're constipated, you can expect any of these to happen. So the key is to ensure that you clear your bowels well. And constipation is truly not about going every day or not. It's about going satisfactorily. If you have to sit for more than 5 minutes and pressure yourself out to go to poop, then that means you are constipated. So it's very relative. So the key is to work on constipation so that these toxins are not reabsorbed from the system and you don't have these issues. Yes.
Okay. So there are a lot of questions. Shiny has been pinging me. So I'm going to just admit her. And so we have Shiny Sajdeva. My co-partner, he's here. She's going to be the viewer's voice. Shiny, you need to unmute yourself.
Hello, everyone. Hello, viewers. So I'm here with the questions from the viewers. So we have some long list of questions. Now we are starting with the, I don't want to waste time because they have long list. So it's from Shalu Chuk. What teenager should eat? What teenagers should eat? What nutrients and are required for their body as a teenager?
Okay.
Please, Shiny, can you answer this question?
Yeah, sure. See, teenage is a phase where, they're making the transition into adulthood. And that's the time they become very rebellious and they wouldn't actually take any kind of suggestions from parents. They're like, I'm grown up, don't tell, and I wouldn't listen. In fact, parents go through a very tough phase at that point in time. But that's also the time that the children need to eat very well. Otherwise, their growth is going to be compromised. If one has a potential to reach, say, 6 feet, but if they're not eating adequately, because after the bone growth, is complete, the epiphyseal plate closes, there wouldn't be any growth. Vertical growth will not be there. So if the children are made to understand that you need to eat adequate calories, then automatically you will reach your growth potential. Okay, but because after a window period of say 18 or say 21, they wouldn't grow any taller. Number one. Next thing is ensuring that the focus is not only on protein, they need carbohydrates and protein, and of course fruits and vegetables. Taki, there is a complete balance. Okay.
Yeah, because
So-
teenagers tend to want to lose weight and they like skip carbohydrates.
Exactly. I have school children who ask for keto and paleo diets, and I'm like, who told you about this? Internet, right? Or this is the fat thing. This celebrity is doing it. They're on
Correct.
Instagram, Facebook. They know it all. So I think this is the time that this has to be emphasized to tell that after 20, if you are trying hard to grow tall, it's not going to happen. And this is the most important phase. So I think this has to be conveyed very strictly, and they need to drink adequate water, because if they're not drinking adequate water, they end up getting headaches, and then they tend to eat more. The perception is like much higher. They tend to perceive thirst as hunger. Yeah.
I'm sure.
Iron, calcium is also very crucial, because children start menstruating. Girls start menstruating. So iron, calcium, and most of these vitamins and minerals. Yeah.
Right. So is wheat bad for kids' gut?
If they're gluten intolerant, yes.
Okay.
So get a test done.
Okay. So we have how much milk is essential for my 4-year-old? Janvi, can we have this answer from you?
I think again, I think I would rather say that I think first of all, from the gut perspective, it's important to actually know whether they can tolerate milk in the first place, because it's still the age of 3 that they have the largest amount of enzyme that's to break down the lactose that's there in the milk. So I think it'll also be relative in comparison to the amount of protein and to the amount of calcium that they're taking in from different fruits. So they're taking in like millets, and they're taking in more whole vegetables, grains, foods, then I think that's going to be deciding how much milk that they would need. Ideally, say about 2 cups a day, and maybe 2 cups of curd a day is what you can talk about. But again, it will vary from each child's requirement for what they need, and whether they're tolerant to it or not. So that's very important to understand. If they have lactose allergy, or they have sensitivity or intolerance, that needs to be ensured, because milk will be very difficult to digest then, although they can have curd. So
In general, 2 cups are enough for a
I think
day.
two cups. You could start with 2 cups of curd a day, 2 cups of milk a day, and obviously use across the board many other sources of protein apart from that. Dals, you're using also looking at using obviously ragi, all of these millets in terms of helping with the calcium also. So keeping a mix of everything, 2 to 3 cups should be good enough a day.
There's one more question, ma'am. Does paternal grandparents' gut affect, or maternal grandparents' gut health affect our health? Is there any relation? Does the gut problem travel in genes? She wants to say, I think, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. There is definitely an epigenetic factor, but yes, there is also equally a factor of how the environmentally and how you actually build up your gut over the time as you're kind of building the foundation for your gut health. So both are actually important. But yes, there is an impact, because we do 99% of our cells belong, 90% of our cells rather actually belong to microbes, bacteria, fungi, and only 10% of our cells are human. So we are more of a super microorganism. So definitely all these bacteria are getting, and microbes are getting, microbiome is getting transferred from one generation to the other. That's
So question for Shiny. My daughter is 10-year-old and her weight is over 40 and she's not eating much and she's exercising daily as well. Still have a weight problem. Any suggestions?
Okay. Definitely check the sleep wake cycle. Is she going to bed before 10 o'clock? That's very important, because a lot of kids are not sleeping on time these days because they're glued to the television and all that, or probably they're using a lot of gadgets. Okay, because the electromagnetic radiation affects the sleep wake cycle. And also, if you have a modem, I think modem has to be switched off after a certain time, because the entire house has all this radiation and all that. So that is another aspect. And also, it's not about eating less, it's about eating right. Okay, so is your child getting adequate nutrients is very important. So please do check that. Is the child eating is one. Next thing is the body has to digest and it has to get into your bloodstream. So that's called assimilation. So is that happening or not? And for a young child, it's not ideal to cut the calories. You just have to sit with a dietitian and learn how much she requires and try to feed, and make sure that water intake, sleep wake cycle, sunlight, these 3 factors also have to be taken care of.
Okay, so there's one more question from Divya Rice. She's asking, are healthy malts that claim as good supplements to make the kids more stronger, taller, etc. Are these good for kids? Shiny, please, can you answer this?
These are drinks, is it? Is she talking about the malted
Yeah,
beverage?
malts, yes.
Read the food label. It has plenty of sugar. When you say malt, it is nothing but barley and wheat, which is sprouted and then powdered. So if a child is gluten intolerant, this should be avoided. And next thing is make a homemade powder. Give your sattu ka atta and powder the millets and the different varieties of rice. Add some pulses to it, roasted Bengal gram powder, everything. Add some
can,
and that's good.
So can you add some chocolate and everything to it?
Yeah, you can add a little bit of chocolate if it's okay. But the child constantly has see, read the label, you will understand the amount of sugar that's sitting there is like atrocious. And you get them started on a cycle where they think that this is, this is okay. And the threshold for sugar really goes up. And then as an adult, you really struggle to get off this habit.
So, there's one more question. This is from Janvi. Apart from the normal roti sabzi, what should we make it as a mandatory food item to make the child have a complete nutrient-rich food?
So I think, like we mentioned, that it's very important to have the right kind of fiber. Both kind of soluble and insoluble fiber is really important. So soluble fiber, things like oats, things like barley, if they're not gluten intolerant or sensitive, or they can have apples. So the soluble fiber again helps the stools move better. So that's really important. It gives the bulk to the stools. And insoluble fiber, when you have like roughage, which you really need from your salads, vegetables, fruits, all of these. So both combinations are really required, because I think one thing that I've seen also with kids is that they do not have enough amount of fiber. They may still manage to have some amount of protein, because as they're growing, the doctors probably saying, the parents are also trying to give them sources of milk, and they're having, probably their dals, and they're probably some of them are having eggs, chicken, fish. But I think fiber is something, and they're constantly, at this half the times they're having issues with their stomach. They're not able to really poop well. So water, having a good amount of water, 1.5 glass per hour, 2 hours, and having fiber, I think are very important to get all the nutrients. Fibers, again, in terms of fruits and vegetables, and make your plate as colorful as possible. Yes.
Correct. So there's one more question for Shiny. I'm almost 16 and I'm diabetic and have hypertension. I eat healthy food and drink a cup of milk before sleeping, a lot of fruits too. Yet I'm constipated most of the times. Can you suggest something?
Okay.
Any particular test to be done or anything?
Yeah, she could probably check for gluten or lactose intolerance, because that could be one of the contributing factors. And another thing is also magnesium. Magnesium actually helps a lot to move the bowels. If there is a magnesium deficiency, that can affect the sleep. It can give a lot of muscle cramping and also affect the stools. So B6, magnesium, very crucial. So the first thing will be to check if she has gluten or lactose intolerance. Once you remove that out of the equation, I think she should be a lot better, because everything else seems to be right. The fiber, water intake, and then exercise also helps. So most often when you start walking or do some exercise, you'll release a lot of gas, so which is actually good. And then as you walk, you'll also feel the urge to go and cleanse your bowels. So there'll be complete evacuation. So activity also helps a lot. And using an Indian toilet is very helpful, because that really opens up the pelvis. The rectum also is like quite comfortable, and there's complete evacuation. Or probably I can use a small stool or something, so that the leg is a little at a higher level than the commode. That also helps. Yeah. So these are factors to be considered.
So I don't know this question. I don't know who would answer this. What is Mapli sambar rice called in English, and can we get it online?
Yes, I can share it with Jayanti. I'll share the link. You can order it online. Yes.
Okay. And there's Haripriya. Haripriya is asking, ma'am, actually I wanted to know those whose gut microbes have more effect on the and is the paternal side of the maternal side of the child parents? Is the same question. The same female who wanted to know about the genes thing. That
both,
gut health.
Both, right?
We answered that. Yeah, both. Absolutely, both.
Okay, correct. And so we have one more question, that is my Miss Ketwi is asking, my daughter is 9-year-old and is constipated since birth. We have tried all kinds of treatments, both allopathy, homeopathy, and Ayurvedic, but no change till date. Please suggest what should I do?
Janvi, do you want to answer?
Yeah, so if
I'll step in later. Go ahead.
yeah, so if she does have constipation as a regular this thing, the first thing that you want to do, and she's tried all these therapies, is number one, to go on to an elimination diet. Now, on a gut process, when we work with, we have a 5-step process, but the first most important process is to eliminate. So the common factors that could be triggering it off for her is less gluten, even gliadin for the matter, which comes from oats and other, proteins from the, grains. Also looking at lactose, looking at peanuts, looking at legumes or dal sometimes also become really, really gassy, and they're not able, because they're oligosaccharides and difficult to digest. There could even also be an issue sometimes when people are having, may say, more non-veg. If they're non-vegetarian, if they're eating chicken or fish, they're not able to pass enough stool. So looking at eggs, chicken, fish could be another thing. So all of these, especially on nuts, peanuts, again, I'm just going to go back again, gluten, lactose, almonds, like a nut family, including your peanuts, and having maybe eggs, chicken, fish, all of these things ideally should probably be eliminated. And also dals, depending on how gassy she feels, should be eliminated for about 5 to 7 days, and replace it like with things with high fiber, green leafy vegetables, have a lot of water, have more fruits, avoid fruits like apples, pears, which are, they also further constipate. So give them, maybe even citrus sometimes reacts or with that. So you want to try and stick to maybe a papaya or a banana, which can give the bulk to the stool and let her pass more easily. So these things would definitely help more. Obviously, add more millets, add gluten-free grains. You can add nashni, you can add jawar, you can add millets. All of these together will help, and adequate amount of water. I think the first key is not to go around shopping for medication, because the body, given half a chance, the body has a chance to heal itself completely just by eating the right food. And also really work on the mind aspect. If something's really stressing her out and she's upset about something, that's going to have a gut-brain connection. No matter what food you give in the world, it will not work till probably she has a chance to be able to deal with what she's feeling, if there is also an emotional aspect here.
Yeah, I think she's covered the entire spectrum. Just one thing to add, a lot of kids have biscuits, bun, rusk, croissant, and all of that.
Yeah.
So parents need to understand, so it's not just eliminating wheat. There are wheat in all of the malted beverages and all these products. So you need to avoid that. And when it is lactose intolerance, ice creams, paneer, the kheer, the entire spectrum. Chocolates also have milk solids.
Yes.
So when you eliminate all of this, that helps.
So I think we need to wrap up. We are running late a bit. So I won't be able to take more questions. So there are a few more questions. It will be great if you guys can answer them online and like in the comment sections. So people, please see the answers, see for your answers on the comment sections below. Jayanti, you want to
wind up?
Yeah.
So we are, I think we should, time up basically. So that's actually comes to an end to a very interesting and educative session. And to sum it up, trying to get our children eat nutritious meal might be really frustrating, but if we do not address this at the very early stage, our child's limited diet will lead to inadequate nutrition and poor gut. Am I right? Yeah. So therefore, we need to move out from it's our job to feed something to our child to it's our job, a real job, to feed a varied, healthy food to our child. And this thoughtful change can actually take care of the child's gut, its health, its immunity, and the nutrition quotient, which actually plays a vital role in their physical and the mental well-being. So that brings us to a fantastic end, and I wish it can go on and on. We don't have time. Nevertheless, thank you, experts. In spite of having your extreme busy schedule, you have given us this valuable time, and you've answered almost most of the questions. And viewers, if any of your questions or concerns have not been answered, please connect with both the experts. Their details are given in the comment section, and you can get all your queries clarified. So thank you, Ms. Janvi, and thank you, Shaini, and thank you all viewers who have been participating in all our talk show and giving us this boost to come up with much more interesting topics. Shiny, you want to say something before we wind?
Yes. So as a weekend package with Saturday, being with the Kids Garden Nutrition, we are getting another show this Sunday. Tomorrow, be with Kids Fun Workout and Fitness. Sporty Beans will be live with us at 4:30 p.m. tomorrow, live at Ketchup Mom's Facebook. So please don't forget to join in. We'll have a lot of fun and workout together.
Yeah, so that's like a package, you know. Saturday it's all about nutrition, and the Sunday is all about fitness and workout. Yeah, it's a proper package. So there's another small note before we wind up. I just want to make an announcement that our next talk show, that is the next Saturday on the 1st of August, our talk show is all about inclusivity of special kids by the school peers. I guess that's a very crucial issue now, and we as parents first of all need to learn and teach our kids how to accept, include, embrace special need kids among the other peers and treat them normal and at par with them. So don't forget to catch us on the next Saturday, 1st of August at 5 p.m. So till then, this is Jayanti Ramnath and Shiny Sachdeva signing off for the evening. Thank you, viewers, and thank you, panelists.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. We had a wonderful time today. Thank you so much for that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ketchup Moms. Thank you.